Well, hello again, everyone, and welcome to our latest webcast that we're bringing you from Travel Weekly. And I'm absolutely delighted to be joined today by Charles Duncombe, who is, of course, the director of Holidaysplease. Charles, welcome.
Hi, Lucy. Hi.
Well, look, it's really good that you could join us today. We've got lots to cover. I want to talk to you all about how you've been coping over the last couple of years and your plans for the future. But if you could just start us off, Charles, just for maybe people who don't know lots about Holidaysplease, but just sort of give us an idea of the scope and the size of your business.
Yeah, sure. So Holidaysplease, we are primarily a long-haul travel agent, sort of 4 or 5-star holidays. We're primarily a home working operation as well. So we've got about sort of 100 or so home workers, but we also have a franchise operation as well with the Holiday Franchise Company, which is for people who are new to travel and require sort of training up. And so we're about 100, all of those in total are about 190 or so people, as I say, focusing on sort of good quality long haul and some short haul as well, holidays.
The majority of people in the sort of the main home working business and a smaller number in the franchise group.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
And how long has the franchise group been running?
So it's been going for a few years. Obviously, just prior to COVID, it was a good time to set up a new business, but it's actually proved quite successful, and we've had quite a few people join even during COVID. So people who really wanted the high wire act, the roller coaster. So it's only a few years. Holidaysplease is obviously sort of much older than that, but it's a good and new addition to the business.
Okay, good overview. All right, well, let's drill down a bit. And I mean, you've mentioned COVID a few times there. I mean, we hope we're out the other side. Yeah, exactly. Fingers crossed. Things are moving in the right direction anyway. But let's just take you back a little bit, because you talked about, people who wanted this high wire experience. Has been a roller coaster, hasn't it? But I know you said you kind of went at COVID like a bull in a china shop. So what did you mean by that?
So, yeah, I mean, I remember back in March 2020 when COVID first hit, and actually I'd just come back from skiing and I'd lost my sense of taste and smell. And even back then, no one knew what this thing was. And I'm like, so I could have been patient zero. So you've got me to blame. I do apologize for that. But when it all started to happen, and obviously all the destinations were closing down, we basically sort of said to ourselves, well, let's try and control the uncontrollables as much as we can, and let's really try and get as much of this into our control. And so instead of sort of going into that hunker down mentality, we tried to be as proactive as possible. So I remember in April 2020, we told all of our home workers and staff to ring up our customers, not just the ones who were departing in the next sort of week or 2 weeks, but over the next sort of 6 or 7 months, and just ring up those customers and say, look, what do you want to do? We think the operators are probably going to have to cancel or move your holidays. Do you want to sit tight? Do you want to change your dates? Do you want to wait until potentially get your money back? And so we spent a lot of time, basically the whole of April 2020, just ringing up customers. And when we did that, it was actually, we got a positive result, because a lot of customers then felt sort of quite reassured and they weren't panicked. And so our cancellation rate was very, very low, only maybe 10, 15%, something like that. And most of it, 85% plus, was just, well, let's hold on, let's see what happens, or let's change the date. And so, and we didn't put anyone on furlough then, we didn't make anyone redundant, we just sort of tried to scale up to deal with that. And when we'd done that, it meant that a lot of our admin we'd done our homework, we got it out the way. And so we actually started selling again. And from April 2020 up to, I remember, August 2020, we managed to get to within about 5% down on 2019 sales, right in the sort of the eye of the storm. Obviously, it then did a bit like that when the government started introducing the okey cokey with red light, green light, whatever other lights. But we just sort of tried to go for it. And if we were,
and when you say you were selling again, and then you ended up only being 5% down, you were selling them obviously into much, future seasons, presumably then. And was it just long haul, which I know you're very, strong in? So was it just future seasons that people felt reassured to book further out, thinking it would be over?
Yeah, so they were booking back then in 2020. They thought it was going to be over in 2021.
Yeah.
And obviously it didn't quite prove to be the case. And obviously those bookings we've had to then rebook and rebook. I mean, sometimes 3, 4, 5 times even. But yeah, back then, I think it was interesting. Customers sort of fell into 3 camps. There was sort of the camp of customers who were going to go away come what may, and were really, really bullish and just wanted to get away as soon as they could. The ones in the middle who were sort of a bit 50-50, if maybe they've got the reassurance or maybe they've got a bit of the deal, they'll go for it. And then there was about a third of customers who were just going to wait for the whole thing to blow over. And so it was a question when we were calling those customers of getting a feel for which ones fell into which camps. And obviously marketing and talking to the ones who were the most bullish and respecting the ones that weren't, and the ones that just wanted their money back or whatever, that was fine. And so yeah, that was sort of what we found then, is that customers were still willing to book, but it was obviously for future business.
And where are you now, sort of halfway through 2022? Have all those people now traveled or booked to travel this year, or have you still got some that are held over into 2023?
Yeah, so this year, right now, I mean, literally right now, the departures are at the biggest they've ever been for us. So we're getting and fingers crossed. And I know there's a lot of media coverage about getting people through airports at the moment, but right now, all those bookings are going. And I think over the next sort of 3 months, this summer, basically, we should have got through most of that extra bulge, that extra backlog of bookings that have come from COVID. Nice. So yeah, the next few months, as long as people can get away, which they can do 99 point whatever percent of the time at the moment, then we should be fine and get through that backlog. And then
it will just be a sort of regular, hopefully back to a more normal booking curve and all the rest of it. So we'll come on to talk about that. Before we do though, I mean, you talked about how you didn't, take up furlough, you kept, actually you took on more people. So, and yet you had to give some money back. So it must have been a financial burden, like it has been for anyone. So just give us an idea of how tough that was and what you've done around that side of things.
Yeah, so we didn't make any redundant. We did put some people on furlough at some points during it. There were some departments that were just sort of didn't have that much to do at that particular time. So we did put some people on furlough. But yeah, I mean, it was a massive financial commitment. So pretty much all of the money that we built up over the previous sort of 10 plus years, we thought, right, we're just going to have to spend it. Because I just thought to myself, I want to get out. It's going to end at some point. COVID is going to end at some point. And what I want is at the end of COVID to come out of it like a cork out of a champagne bottle, really. I wanted to come out of it with all my staff intact, with all my goodwill intact, and to take advantage of that boom that is going to be, because you've got people who've been locked down for a year, 2 years, however long, and they're going to want to get away. And so I thought that it was best to take a lot of pain for a short period of time than sort of prolonged pain for a long period. And so, yeah, that's the decision we took. We were lucky. We were very we in the September before, when Thomas Cook had gone bump, we sort of thought, a few things. We weren't quite sure what could happen, but we thought some nasty things could happen in the supply chain. So let's conserve a bit of cash. Let's build up some cash. So we did have some cash to help us. Also, I mean, historically, our bank has been hugely supportive of our business, and we're ironically trying to throw money at us before COVID, which we didn't want. And then we came to them in COVID and said, look, if we go for this strategy, are you going to be there with us? And they were like,
yeah,
okay, right. If that's what it's going to be, let's go for it. And they did.
That's good though. That's great. I mean, you know, because you need that kind of cushion, don't you? You need to be able to have that sort of support behind you. So, and would you say that you think that's probably quite an unusual strategy? Do you think that sort of did allow you to then come out really fighting when the demand came back?
I think there's been I think there's been all sorts of strategies. I think there've been a number of travel companies who themselves have been sort of financially very solvent. You look at the likes of sort of Trailfinders and people like that who've been in a good position. I don't think anyone's been in, I suppose, no, you can't say anyone's been in a good position in COVID, but there are certain companies that I think have been in very good positions to weather the storm. And then there have been other companies that I think have been really challenged. And I suspect most companies fall within the spectrum. I don't think it's quite black and white, right, bull in a china shop, let go for it, or completely hunker down. I suspect everyone's sort of fallen in between. And as the goalposts moved week to week, day to day, month to month during COVID, I suspect people's strategies and appetite for risk sort of almost changed on a monthly basis.
And how was yours though? Because of course there were times when we thought we were coming out of it, and then there was Omicron. So there was, as you say, this little bit of up and down. Did you always remain positive, or at some point were you thinking, Christ, this has actually gone on longer than we thought with our strategy that we were?
I always remained outwardly positive. we always, I think that all our deeds were always outwardly positive, whether behind the scenes at some point when the likes of Omicron hit and you sort of thought to yourself, oh my God, here we go again. And it was, inwardly, you would sometimes sort of doubt the tactic, and you sometimes think to yourself, well, maybe we should be being a bit more sensible, if you like. But we'd done quite a lot of planning, and in our business plans, we'd seen the roller coasters. And at some point, we were heading down the bottom of the roller coaster at quite a heavy pace. But if it was at a pace that you were expecting, and then it was sort of leveling off at you were expecting as well, you shouldn't be afraid if you're on the roller coaster, if you know where it's going and what it's doing. And so, there were times where it was very, very testing for us as a management team, but we held our nerve, and thankfully Omicron proved to be, in a weird way, you could say it was a bit of a blessing in disguise. It was less deadly than the variants before. It was more transmissible, so that people who weren't getting vaccinated were now effectively getting vaccinated through natural immunity. And in December last year, it was like,
oh, here we go. Here we go again.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. So in terms of you said you had this cushion, you'd built up some reserves, and then you've got the support of the bank. But where are you now in terms of the future then? And have you got sort of reserves to invest in the future now, or have you had to sort of rein back on some of your plans, or where are you now?
So I think as we said, if the departures happen over the next sort of few months, I think by the end of this calendar year, we will probably be back in a position financially we were going into COVID. So I think that will be sort of, we will have, I'm touching wood and not trying not to tempt
it for you. Don't worry, I've got some here too.
Don't broadcast this or anything. So I think by the end of this calendar year, we'll hopefully be back in a sort of a position that's pretty much commensurate with what we were going into COVID. And so, we can be looking at sort of investment and stuff. We are still investing at the moment and have been throughout. But I think the end of this year, but it's a big question, I think, for all of us in the travel industry is getting back to where you were good enough, or do you need to hold in reserve actually a lot more than you did beforehand in case God forbid something like this happens again? So I think this is going to have sort of long-term implications for how much travel companies can invest going forward versus how much they've got sitting in cash and reserves.
Well, yes, and that would be a change of strategy, and it brings me on nicely to another question, because I was going to say that, what have you learned, I guess, through this or changed about your business? I think everybody had to change and adapt, and some of those things were temporary, and some of those things people are probably thinking, actually, we're now, this is a good way to do things going forward. And so is there anything that you've learned that you're going to keep him in, keep following as you go forward?
So in terms of things that I've learned certainly that people are exceptionally resilient when it comes to particular situations. And we literally, April 2020, while our home workers worked from home, obviously, we still had sort of 50 or so, back then 40 or so, head office staff working from our office in Birmingham. and to throw them into a home working environment when there are still potentially paper invoices coming in and paper tickets going out and stuff like that. I think throwing everyone into that situation overnight pretty much, and me as a business owner not knowing how everyone's going to react to that, seeing the resilience and the adaptability of everyone over the last sort of couple of years has really been a real eye-opener for me. And when we came back, we've basically said to everyone, look, what do you want to do from now on? Do you want to come back into the office? Do you want to work from home? And we've let them make their decisions. So we've got some people who've come back into the office sort of almost full time. We've got some.
What's the split though? I mean, it's because we're having it here. I guess every business is having this. Some people thrive at home. Some people miss being in the office. What's been your experience?
So the vast majority were quite happy working from home, and it's not quite happy working from home because they've got their feet up, and it's actually because they get more stuff done. They don't have an hour's commute either way, each way, or half an hour, or what have you, and so they most wanted to work from home. We're happy with that. I mean, I'd say sort of 80-90% that sort of figure. What we have said though is that we'll have at least sort of once a month, so we'll have Thirsty Thursday where everyone comes in and we all have a few drinks and some food and stuff like that, and just so that everyone gets to see a human being other than their kids and the cat and stuff like that, and to remember what we all look like, and because I think it's important that we don't all get stuck too much into the home working, not from a non-effective work point of view or anything like that, but just from a psychological, we are human beings. We do want to sort of interact with each other. And when they come into the office on a Thursday, it's just basically sort of chatting all day and catching up, which in old times I would have been like, right, get back to work, etc., etc. But now
you're really encouraging it.
Yeah, exactly. It's like therapy. Just download, just catch up. So yeah, it's a sort of a hybrid working, but it's very much less.
And will that affect the size of the office that you need in Birmingham, for example? Will you still keep your offices or?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting one. We own the premises in Birmingham, and so at the moment we've got however many hundreds of thousands of pounds worth of assets sitting there that's used one day a month, and then a skeleton start. But then there are sort of people who work during the week there as well. But it's most of the month it's sort of 90% underutilized, and then on the one day it's overutilized because everyone's there. So yeah, I've got to work through that one a little bit. I haven't quite sort of got to that yet.
Yeah, okay. Well, so you're talking about some of your learnings, which is great. Were there any silver linings, actual positives that came from it that you are now sort of implementing sort of long term?
I think there've been a few efficiency things. So I mentioned, I touched on their sort of paper invoices, paper tickets, and I think both ourselves and operators have learned to do a lot more sort of by email. I think there are other business efficiency stuff. I think as much as we hate Zoom, sometimes they can be better in terms of more efficiency than face-to-face meetings where you're not making cups of tea and all this sort of stuff. So I think there are some business efficiencies that have come from it. I think from our point of view, I think there's been a big opportunity to increase the goodwill with customers. I think customers have been really, really sympathetic to the travel industry throughout this because they know what we've been going through. And I think as long as you've kept customers informed and been good to them, I think they've really recognised the value of the travel agent over the last couple of years. I think the big threat for us as agents and operators going into COVID was the rise of DIY and customers going, oh, well, I can book the hotel direct there and I'll book the flight there. And I think one of the things that COVID's shown is just how useful it is to get those package travel protections in there, to get the advice of an independent agent with a quality operator.
Are you seeing that now, Charles? Are you actually seeing like new people coming to your home workers? Are they managing to pick up new customers because of that?
Yeah, definitely. So we've seen some customers who sort of drifted away maybe a little bit before COVID, unbeknownst to us, had booked a little holiday themselves, sort of DIY. It had gone a little bit pear-shaped, and they'd come to us going, look, can you help? And obviously we're happy to do that. And so we've had those customers come back.
Yeah.
We've also had a lot of referrals from customers, our customers who've booked with us, but their friends, sometimes even on the same trip, who've maybe DIY'd it, done it themselves, got themselves into a bit of a pickle. And so those customers are coming to us more and more as well. So yeah, I think that is a silver lining that's come from this. Not that I would wish COVID on anyone in the travel industry, but yeah.
No, but it definitely has shown the worth, hasn't it? And the value of an expert and having someone there to sort of reassure you and help sort out the mess, as you say. And then in terms of what people are booking, you know, you say these customers have been loyal and they've been, you know, key. Are they spending more money now? Are they coming back and booking different types of holidays? Like, what trends are you seeing in some? I know you've got some still to go away that were previous bookings, but in terms of the new stuff now in a post-pandemic era, what new trends are you seeing?
So going into COVID, our average sale was around about sort of £4,500 per booking, something like that. I think at the moment it's near a sort of 5,500. Sometimes it's even touched 6,000, and that's not because prices have gone up yet. I suspect they are going to, with obviously fuel hedging unwinding and then feeding into airfares. But it's simply because people want bigger and better holidays at the moment. So you've got loads of factors at play. You've got the fact that obviously during lockdown they were sitting and they couldn't spend their money. There's only so many new cars you can buy or extensions to your house and stuff. So there was a lot of disposable cash sitting around. There was a lot of unused holiday entitlement. They at work, they haven't been able to take holiday, so they've got to take holiday. So they want to go for 10 days instead of 7, or 14 instead of 10. And with that and the disposable income, and also the fact they've just been like caged up for so long, they want an upgrade on the flight, they want an upgrade on the room, they want to go all inclusive instead of half board or full board. And so they've upgraded pretty much across the board, every single element of the holiday. And that sort of added, as I say, to an increase of sort of, for us personally, from sort of 4,500, 5,000 to 5,500, 6.
Yeah. And do you think that will be you know, is that going to be a short-lived thing, just in their kind of blowout because they've got out of lockdown? Or do you think once they get a taste of that, they might go, oh, I quite like traveling business class? I mean, do you think you can maintain those kind of average selling prices, I guess?
I think it'll drop back a bit. I think it will drop back a bit. I think there will some people who will get a taste for it, which is great. But I think there will some people where it'll drop back. I think we also need to obviously factor in the cost of living situation that we've got at the moment and will have for a time to come.
Are you seeing that? Is it starting to bite already, Charles, or is it just something that you're aware of on the horizon that you just need to be mindful of?
Yeah, I think it's the latter. I don't think at the moment, the post-COVID bump is still winning against the cost of living squeeze. As the post-COVID bump goes away, will the cost of living squeeze then become the sort of predominant thing that people are thinking about? I think it will be a factor. I think it depends probably on certain sections of the market. There might be certain sections, maybe the sort of the more retired end who've got their pensions triple locked and loads of savings and everything. They might be okay. And what is your? I know you're 4 and 5 stars, so in a way that might give you a bit of a, you know, like cushion or whatever from the real problems. But is it largely an older demographic that you tend to attract, or is it a real range of age? We're actually across from the age of sort of 25 to 30 through to sort of 60, 65. If you look at our demographics, it's pretty flat across all of them. So we'll typically have the honeymooners to start with at the 25 to 30, and then they turn into young families, working couples and stuff, and then they just move through. So we have quite a sort of a flat demographic.
Yeah, and you keep them nice. You keep them for that, and you try and keep them for that lifetime, of course, so that you can do different holidays for them as they go through each stage.
That's right. So we don't actually market short haul at all. We don't spend any money marketing sort of short haul. It's a very, very tough market, and it's something that we don't spend sort of any money on really. But our top 5 destinations, Spain will be in our top 5 destinations, and that's purely because in the past we've booked honeymooners who've now, well, what do they get up to on their honeymoon? they now have a young family, and so they can only then travel short haul while obviously the children are quite young, and so they come back to us. So yeah, so we do have a good spread. And yeah, we try and from cradle to grave if possible. So yeah.
Absolutely. All right. And so yeah, so you mentioned marketing there. So I mean, are you back marketing again? I think most people maybe you didn't, but not most people reined in on marketing when you really couldn't actually travel anywhere. But did you do any marketing? And is it now sort of ramped back up to where it would have been pre-COVID? And what are you saying? Is the messaging different?
We did not take down our marketing at all in COVID. We carried on, because when we, as I mentioned back in April 2020, when we'd sorted out all of our sort of admin, we wanted to get back selling again. And while the market was down, I don't know, 70, 80%, everyone else was sort of down as well, and was hunkering down. And we heard that sort of sales teams and marketing teams elsewhere were being furloughed and such like. And so we're still while we're a good number of people in the travel industry, we're still very, very small compared to, and so there's, even when the market contracts 80%, that 20% that left is still would keep us going for many, 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 many times over. And so yeah, we have a commitment to all of our home workers. We will always keep you busy. There will always be inquiries in the pool for you to take.
Do you send them all the leads, or do they create their own database of their own sort of personal customer database?
So they do. We do both. So we're agnostic, which way, and a mixture of the two. So if we have a new home worker who comes in who wants to use just their own base, that's absolutely fine. Or if they've got no customers at all and want us to feed them 100, 150 leads a month, whatever it is, all long haul, we'll do that. And we'll do it free of charge. And so, yeah, we'll work with people. And what usually happens is we get a lot of people who join who start off needing the leads.
Yeah.
And then we obviously feed them in. And then over the years, they then build up their own base from those leads, and they start to repeat, and they give referrals and everything. And then they wean themselves off, but it's completely up to them as to how much or how little they do that. And they can choose the pool of inquiries that's sitting there. They can see which destinations the inquiries to, and they can actually choose whichever ones they want. So it matches the expert to the customer, and it's all sort of self-selecting. So yeah, so it works very well.
And they can choose their specialism as well, or do you try and suggest that they do more training or fam trips in a certain area? Or
they can do what they want. We will tailor the marketing to what they want. If we have someone who comes in who's a particular expert on a particular location, or train journeys or river cruises or whatever it is, we can gear up the marketing to provide leads for that specialism. We always suggest to people to try and have a bit of a breadth, because I mean, especially as we saw in COVID, when we had the government locking down whole countries and sticking them on red lists. If that was your specialism, well, you need a couple of others. So we always recommend a bit of diversity. But it's up to the home worker as to what they would like to specialise in.
And just because obviously over COVID, lots of people, perhaps they were made redundant or they started working from home, lots of people started looking at home working organisations, and then other companies set up divisions, didn't they? New home working divisions. There seems to be quite a lot of competition now in that space. I know you've been around for a long time, but there are some new entrants into that. You say you're still quite small, but I mean, what is it about you that's the USP? Is it that sort of, you give people such flexibility? Is that something you think people come to you for? Or is there sort of something you'd say about Holidaysplease which sets you apart from all those other home working organisations?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a few things. I think obviously we deal with sort of the long haul luxury end of the market, and so when home workers, which is typically a commission only base, when you do a booking in that area, you generally make more money than you do in certain other areas. I think the fact that we provide as many leads as you want, free of charge, whenever you want, is a big plus as well. And I think some other companies maybe don't do that quite so much because it is a big financial burden. I think I'd point obviously to all the sort of the support that we offer and the technology and everything like that. We build a lot of stuff ourselves from scratch. And so if ever a home worker ever wants, oh, can you just change this? Can we add this? We do between 30 and 45 updates to our technology every week from our in-house team. And I'd say probably 60 or 70% of those changes are home worker driven as to what would make their lives easier, better. And so I think some of those things are probably sort of the things that attract them towards us. But yeah, you're right. There is a lot of competition. There is a lot of choice,
and there's more. That's all I was saying. You know, that it's still sort of increasing all the time. But then again, more people probably want to work from home now. So perhaps there's enough to go around. Just in terms of that, I'm just conscious of your time, Charles. But in terms of the future and the ambition for the business, you know, what you say, you're quite sort of relatively small in the scheme of things. But do you want to be bigger, or is it about quality rather than quantity, or will you go into different sort of areas, or is this luxury long haul your mainstay? What will your sort of future ambitions be?
I think we're looking to continue as we were, I suppose, prior to COVID, where we've always been interested in strong, sustainable, steady growth. So typical sort of 15-20% a year on year sort of growth is where that we go for, and that's in
you measuring that on turnover.
So that's turnover. So that might come a 10% increase in sales staff, but a 10% increase in efficiency and productivity of each of those staff, and you add it up together to give sort of as I say 15-20% growth. We're more than that at the moment, but it's the let's not get too excited. There's the post-COVID bump out there at the moment, and so I think for us it's continuing on that sort of strong, sustainable growth. We take our gambles when we've had to in COVID. I think for us at the moment it's a question of building that stability, that solidity, maybe building up some reserves as well, and then that might offer all sorts of opportunities in the future. But I think certainly for the next sort of 6 to 12 months, while we shouldn't have got too downbeat in COVID, equally I don't think we should get too overexcited with the bubble that seems to be sort of here a bit at the moment, and just carry on with that sort of steady progress. I think is where we like to be.
Yes, and on that point about just exercising a bit of caution, what do you see as the challenges or the potential bumps in the road? I mean, there are still. I mean, I know we talked about how recruitment is a big issue. We have lost a lot of talent from the sector. I know you said you didn't lose anyone through redundancy, but that's an issue. You talked about fuel. We touched a little bit on the current sort of chaos and stuff in the media around airports, but you're saying that's not really affecting you. Most people are getting away. But what are the current sort of things that maybe keep you awake at night?
Well, I think one good thing about COVID is nothing keeps you awake at night now. It's bring it on.
Bring it on. You can handle it now.
We dealt with that. Just keep throwing it at us.
You've never slept better, have you, Charles?
Yeah, easy peasy. We're bulletproof. I think there's a few, as we've mentioned. There's the cost of living. I think the fuel when airline fuel duty. I mean, it's good that a lot of airlines have hedged for this, a lot of their fuel for this year, but they're buying fuel, hedging fuel now for next year. I don't even want to think. We all know what the prices at the petrol pumps are like. So
you think prices will inevitably go up? So it's on the flight element anyway, which will put the price of a package up.
Yeah, I think airline prices are going to go up quite.
But that's a good message, I guess, to get customers to lock in their holidays as soon as possible, I suppose.
Yeah, we are saying that to customers, and we can say it looking them straight in the eye, because it is absolutely going to be the case, and I think most customers understand that, and so it's just giving them some certainty. So I think the cost of living. I think some of the problems we're going to see in the summer with airports, again, it's going to be the media picking on a few airports on a few days that are going to look dreadful, and hoping that customers can sort of see through that. Although most customers have booked their summer holidays now anyway, and so it's more.
But are you getting calls with people saying, am I going to get, is it going to be all right? They've booked it, but they're seeing these images, and we're talking to agents who say that there's never a call now with the customer where the customer doesn't say, am I going to get, is it actually going to go ahead?
Yeah, we do get a lot of that. I mean, luckily, being long haul versus short haul, we seem to have escaped a little bit more, because it seems that the airlines, if they're going to cancel a flight or bump a flight, it's much easier to do it if it's a domestic flight or a very short haul where there's likely to be another flight even later that day to put customers on and move things around. Obviously, if you cancel a long haul flight and suddenly the aircraft is out of position halfway across the world and crew are here and they're overnighting there, and I think long haul tends to be sort of one of the last flights that they cancel, and so I don't think we've had it as bad as others. Not to say we haven't or we won't, and obviously there's rumblings with sort of BA strikes and things like that going on. So yeah, we do get a lot of customers saying, look, what is it going to be okay? And the advice we give is, well, let's stick to what the airlines are saying. You don't necessarily want to panic customers and say go to the airport too early, because if everyone does that and everyone piles at the airport too early, before then you then have even longer queues and people having to get pulled out of the queue who are next in line for that flight to actually catch it. And so
I think self-perpetuate, it just becomes a bigger
exactly. And so I think we've got to sort of try and calm things down a little bit and put things in perspective, so there isn't sort of it's not like a run on the bank or a run on the petrol station when you think you're running out of fuel and you've got to stock up, and like the toilet rolls at the beginning of COVID. And
oh my God,
remember that?
Oh my, yes, I do. And
I've still got 3,000 I need to be selling.
Stockpile you. You couldn't get, do you remember you couldn't get bread, and then you couldn't even buy flour to make your own bread? It was just insane. Absolutely.
So I think as an industry we need to help educate customers and say it as it is, not sugarcoat it, but give sensible advice and maybe take some of the panic out of it that I think's maybe around at the moment a little bit.
Okay, all right, but in general, Charles, can we say that you are more optimistic than if I'd have done this interview a year ago?
Yes. Yes. And certainly in December when Omicron hit, it was okay. But I if you'd have offered me this position last year, I would have bitten your hand off. I think coming out the end of last year, I know there was the bump in the road with Omicron, but for us, our sales have been up on 2019 since sort of August last year, pretty much. So as soon as those traffic lights things were going on green lists and stuff, we were finding customers were switching bookings and booking, and there was such a desire just to get away. So we have been on an upward curve, but I'm very, very happy with where we are at the moment.
Honestly, the number of interviews I did when it was just people were in, really in dire, it was terrible, wasn't it? And it's just so nice to now be interviewing people and seeing that you've come through.
There's a real smile on my face.
I know.
Not a pretend one. Not a pretend one.
I know. I'm really pleased. And I'm so grateful for your time today, Charles. It's really good just to get a take on how you've been dealing with it. And, we wish you all the best, because it does sound positive. And I know you say you're being sensible, but let's hope it does continue. So thank you so much for your time today.
Fingers crossed. Thank you, Lucy, and thanks for your support from us and everyone in the travel industry. We've been getting through this together, I know.
Oh, you're very welcome. All right. Well, look, I'll see you soon, and thank you so much.
Okay, cheers.